Introducing myself. I am Nidhi and I am the co-founder and CEO of Silver Talkies. I'm today joined by my colleagues Reshmi and Chitra. And Silver Talkies is basically a community-led engagement forum for specifically for the 55 plus. And our focus is primarily on how to keep seniors active, happy, and engaged through different activities. So we run a social club called the Silver Talkies Club. And many of the members who are here are many of the people here today are members of the Silver Talkies Club. So they are all friends who are joining us today from different cities. There is Anand Shankar joining us from Hyderabad. There is Ishrat joining us from Mumbai. There are many others here who are here from Bangalore. Nand is joining us from Chennai. Joseph is joining us from Hyderabad again. So yeah, so we are we have members across 15 different cities now, everybody brought together by one single goal of how to stay happy and how to lead a healthy life and how to keep your social connections thriving and how to keep learning new things and how to really stay active. I think active aging is the most, is the common goal amongst all of us organizationally and individually. So that's why we are here today. And if we are talking about active aging, of course, staying busy vocationally, having productive work opportunities forms like a key ingredient of that whole journey. And that is why today we have amongst us Neeraj Sagar, who is the founder of Wisdom Circle. He's joined today by Niharika Shetty, who is also part of the Wisdom Circle team. And before I get into this conversation with Neeraj and Niharika, let me just quickly introduce to you what Neeraj's profile is. So Neeraj actually, before becoming an entrepreneur with Wisdom Circle in 2022, he was a senior partner at Egon Zehnder, a reputed global search firm, where he led its industrial practice in the Asia Pacific, Middle East, and Africa regions. And besides leading the firm's family business advisory practice in India, Neeraj was also a trusted advisor on corporate governance. And prior to Egon Zehnder, he has worked with McKinsey & Company, BCG, and has like a long history of corporate career. He also holds an MBA degree from University of Chicago, MS in engineering from Stanford University, a bachelor's degree in engineering from TKIET in India, and he's also the co-president of Stanford Angels and Entrepreneurs in India. So I think with that stellar CV that Neeraj has, Neeraj, what made you give up all of that and start Wisdom Circle?
So first of all, thank you, Nidhi. Hope everyone can hear me. So I think let me sort of do the reintroduction. I live in Bangalore. My wife is an artist. I have two boys. Both are in college. I look older than I am because I grade very early. I used to color my hair and I stopped coloring about 10 years ago. And suddenly when I stopped coloring, and this sort of starts answering your question, Nidhi, the moment I stopped coloring my hair, I started being treated very differently. In some ways, in a good way, in some ways, in not so good a way. The good way was that I can now, like I went to the RTO office to renew my license. I was in and out in 15 minutes because they said, sir, you go first. Indigo, I always get a place to sit on the bus, right? And they allow me preferential boarding. So there's something about white hair that just works. So anyway, so to answer your question, Nidhi, I think the reason I started it is I realized that everyone was thinking about, in India specifically, the young population, not enough for thinking about most of us as we are getting older. And as a headhunter, I would have a lot of people reaching out to me saying, yeah, Neeraj, we are about to retire. What should we do? And I think, and that question started for the last 10 years has been bothering me a lot because even as a headhunter in a firm that is very globally reputed, I mean, we had done the search for Infosys CEO, Air India CEO, now Kotak Bank, so it was, we are doing, but no one was thinking about this hardworking middle class, like us, our parents and the like, and who had skills, who had experiences, and suddenly we would retire. They were not in our board roles or advisory roles. So Nidhi, I started thinking about this problem, like I said, a long time ago, but I think COVID sort of opened it up and I said, yeah, I have to sort of figure out my purpose a little bit more, and therefore that's how it started. When I said, yeah, I have the skill set of connecting good people to good opportunities. Now, how can I leverage that to solve a problem which will only become bigger as the world ages? And also, given longevity, given how people are living much longer. So, the phrase we use is finding meaningful opportunities. So, it's not just jobs, although I think we stay away from the volunteer side. We try to. But we say, look, anyway, we'll talk more specifically about our principles and how we operate. But Nidhi, that's essentially, and during COVID, there was a lot of reading around cognitive decline, around biohacking, everything to do with longevity, and then coming to this thing that no one is really solving this. Well, we're all getting older. We might live longer, but then what are we going to do? Right. So therefore, in a way, sort of connecting those two dots and saying, okay, maybe I have some experiences that can help solve a part of this problem. So that's how maybe the idea of Wisdom Circle started.
So now that it has been almost 1.5 years on this
Correct.
journey, right?
Correct.
How has been the experience? What have you learned so far?
So Nidhi, I think the first, I think what we have learned is it is a big problem that unfortunately not too many people are solving for or wanting to solve for, because it is a difficult problem. Most of us who get older want to continue doing things meaningfully, but organizations were not proactively solving for this segment or creating roles for this segment. So that was our first learning. But what we also learned, so when we started, we interviewed a bunch of people, including people I've spoken to over the years. We learned, so essentially we as an organization are now solving for two things. And this, in a way, is the biggest learning for us. So one, for retirees, in a way, we are solving for relevance and we are solving for respect. Those are the two words we are solving for. Relevance meaning, yeah, I've done so much, I know so much. I've suddenly, find myself in a place where someone has said, okay, here's a retirement age, and now I need to sort of step back. But then how do I continue staying relevant for me, for my family, for the world? So that's one piece. Respect meaning, respect us for the wisdom and the knowledge and the skills and the experience we have, as opposed to, putting us on a side saying, Acha, your time is done, now the young people. So I think those are the two things we're solving for. And the way we are solving for, I think we are telling people, look, our job is to expand people's networks and to transfer wisdom. So again, coming back, the learning essentially was a lot of people want to give back. A lot of people want to continue getting the mind active. And the biggest one for us was, if the brain continues working and working at a pace that helps you continue growing, and therefore you will live much more happier lives. It's not about living longer, it's about having a life. I think that's sort of the difference. So there's absolutely a lot of interest from most of us who are retiring and think, kuch karna chahiye. And of course, for those of the men are always nudged by their wives to say, dekho, ghar mein mat baitho. I keep telling my father's 85, my mother is 80. I think the example I use is, my father doesn't want to cut bhindi at home. He's tired of cutting bhindi at home. Because he's like, yeah, I'm a civil engineer. I've worked for 40 years. And now look what my wife is making me do. Not that he doesn't do it, but so that's also learning. I think in a way we are doing things for the good of the social construct that we all live in.
No, that's a fair point. And I think the whole point that you raised about with extending lifespans, I think it's equally important to extend the health spans, which is not happening as much. In fact, I was looking at a study which spoke about how over the last, 40 odd years, 50 odd years, the life expectancy has increased by 19 years. But in the same time frame, the health spans haven't increased at all. And almost 50% of individuals spend their time in poor health. And that those health spans are actually not changing at all. So I think that's where it's very important that people stay productive and keep continuing to work. But while there may be a lot of need, right? And I remember Reshmi had written an article on our digital magazine very early on, I think almost as early on as 2018 and stuff, talking about second career opportunities and what could be done. And till date, we receive so many responses on that article where it's all the older adults who are looking for opportunities, right? So there is a lot of requirement from the there is a demand for these jobs, for these work opportunities. But are there roles available? Are the corporates willing to actually take older adults or the retirees back in some form or shape?
No, in fact, no, thank you. And in fact, that is the real problem we are trying to solve. So, and again, our learning there is that the right organizations are open to it. And so, as of now, in the last, I would say, we actually opened up our platform only in January, maybe, because we were doing a lot of testing and all of that. So, to your point, I think we've grown from 800 people on our platform in January to this morning we crossed 20,000 people, and we're not even marketing ourselves. On an organization front, we've got more than 200 organizations that have created accounts on our platform, wanting to hire. And again, it comes back to how we position it. So the way we position it to people is, like, oh, we don't want to replace the young. That is not our intent. We want to bring wisdom, knowledge, skills into your organization so you can do things quicker, faster than you otherwise would have been able to. And therefore, we ask them, tell us about a problem you have for which you do not have skills, do not have the knowledge, and you need people to mentor and guide the current population that you have. And that is what is capturing people's imagination and saying yes. Every time we ask that question, and we typically don't ask this of, we ask this of a CEO typically, because the CEOs typically will know, "Hi, ye problem hai." Like, for example, this morning I got a call from an organization that said, "Look, we are setting up something from scratch. We know what we want to do, and we want to do it fast." And he says, "Just the amount of time it takes to get younger people, to teach them, scale them, etc. Why can't we get people who are retired who can supplement them?" So we tell people we are in the business of wisdom transfer, not in operations. Like, we're trying not to create roles. And by saying create, the discussions we have is, so for example, we were talking to one talent acquisition person who said, "Yeah, look, I have 100 open roles." So the question that we asked him is, okay, in those 100 open roles, are there 5 or 10 where you can benefit from someone with a lot of experience, but not full-time? In fact, we're trying to stay away from full-time roles. A big realization, this is also the learning we had, is a lot of us as we get older do not want to continue running at the same pace. In fact, our mascot, and Nidhi, you know this, is a gender-neutral turtle. So for all of us who've heard the hare and the tortoise story, we tell people we are solving for the hare. We are not solving for the tortoise. And the hare, it operates at its own pace. It has a hard shell. It lives longer, and it is wise. And I think that is resonating with people. Now, I think it differs from country to country. And to your question, the retirement problem and the meaningful work, not everybody wants to do it for the money. But now this comes back to the respect piece that we talked about. We tell all the organizations that list, yeah, they go free men. Don't get people to do it for free. Pay them. Call it an honorarium, right? If you can't call it a salary and if you can't pay as much. It's not that everybody needs the money, but you have to respect their time. So that is what is working. And a lot of people also, after we retire, we don't need the same kind of salaries that we needed when we were working and had a career journey, had a lot of. Now, there are, I would say 5% of the people who will say, "Yeah, look, money is important and I need to make sure I earn." In which case, some of them choose the career path and sort of say, "I will continue working full time." But there are a lot of us who say, "Yeah, look, treat us fairly, treat us with respect, pay us what we are worth, whatever you can pay, and we will do our best to help in whichever way we can." So that is working. Now, there are organizations that have reached out saying, "Yeah, we don't want to hire people who are older." But that's okay. But again, what we are, rather than expend our energy in convincing them those 5% who are not bought into this, we are trying to convince the 95 to do more, because then we can use them as role models so that others automatically convert. So it's a long journey, and we are in this for the long haul, and that's our mission.
So can you elaborate a bit on the kind of traction that you have seen and what kind of roles where you have been able to place some of the older adults in?
And there are many, right? So in fact, this is possibly a good time to bring Niharika in, is what I'm thinking. And we actually have a small, just on this question, we also have a small, not presentation, a few slides that just emphasizes what I was talking about, which will also give you a sense of exactly the question you asked.
Sure.
Niharika, would you want to take over?
Share the screen?
Sorry, I can just do it without the slide, or you want? Okay.
You can do it without the slide.
Okay. Because the slides have, Neeraj pretty much covered a lot of the things that are on the slides already.
That's okay. You can run towards.
Yes. So when we look at the kind of roles that I've listed and also where we have placed people, there's a lot of variety actually. I'll start by maybe categorizing them first, and then I can share a bunch of real examples. We get sort of asks for consultants, again, part-time being like consultants for, let's say, a team in a particular organization. Then organizations specifically look for subject matter experts, like in a very, very niche, narrow like area that they need the expert to sort of help the team or create a plan or something like that. Then when you go more towards, let's say, the social sector and the education space, we get a lot of mentoring, advisors, counselors, even sometimes professors in universities, especially like professors of practice, like industry practitioners to sort of teach students. So these are broadly the categories that we see. If I take some specific examples, there are large companies that have come to us for, let's say, a sourcing and a supply chain expert. There was one company that came to us, they were doing a project in Leh Ladakh, and they specifically needed someone who knew the terrain. It's like a construction project. So it's someone who knew the terrain and who knew how to sort of pitch, right? Like put together a proposal to actually do that project in that terrain. And they very specifically asked for an army veteran, like an army engineer, who will know what needs to be done and how the company can sort of put forth a proposal and win the project. There are also like coaches and mentors. So we have also placed coaches to the CFO. We have placed mentors to sort of younger, to high potential leaders in organizations, stuff like that. And again, when you go to the social sector side, there are advisors to NGOs. Sorry, can you hear me fine?
Yeah, we can hear you. We can hear you.
Okay, fine. Okay. So we have advisors to NGOs, we have mentors to sort of underprivileged students, volunteers, again, like I said, professors of practice. So these are some of the examples I can share.
And these, of course, as Neeraj said, these would all be part-time opportunities and paid opportunities?
Yes, yeah. Even from placements that have happened, there's of course much higher sort of success with the part-time roles that we have listed on the platform.
And do these require being in office, or are these also opportunities which can be facilitated in a work from home model?
So I think this also, Mr. Nankumar also asked these questions. I think our biggest learning on this, Nidhi, is, see, organizations always want people full-time. Quite interesting how organizations think. We are telling people, in fact, yesterday we had a discussion, Niharika and I, with a company that wanted to hire some specific people who retired from public sector in the energy sector. And, they started by saying, "Ye roles are full-time." And we said, "No, we are not going to list full-time." I said, "You have to understand this." So we are, in a way, educating them to say, "Look, this segment doesn't want to work full-time. Let's start with part-time. Let's start with 3 days a week. If you find somebody who's willing to do more, we can talk about that later. But let's start. And we convinced them, and they today listed roles at 3 days a week. Right now. So I think this to answer your question, hybrid is the word as opposed to work from home. Because a lot of organizations still prefer people to show up at least sometime in the distance. So therefore, and in some cases they'll say, look, say we are in Chennai, you're in Bangalore, come once a month, right? Or come twice a month, which then works, right? Because you get out, sort of meet the team, etc. There are some roles which are completely remote as well, but those are what we are learning is those are fewer. Now, I'm going to actually start also addressing some of the questions, right? So one, you're absolutely right. There's some very few openings advertised for seniors in the outside world. And as Mr. Pradeep is saying, he's not received opportunity. So the way we are working, and this is in a way something that, and therefore you have to excuse us because we are building this market. This market doesn't exist. Because we are building this market, the number of people coming onto a platform versus the number of opportunities we are able to list, there is a mismatch, right? So we've listed more than 1,000 roles so far. We've got 20,000 people on our platform. So, but we are continuing to work on the other side to increase those roles. So I know it's going to take time, and you have to bear with us, Mr. Pradeep. We're trying our best, and I think the roles, as Niharika was saying, are in different areas, right? So we've got roles in the industry vertical where your specific skills come into play. You have the education vertical where you can go out and teach and things like that, and you've got the social impact vertical.
And if I may interrupt, and just to kind of build up on what Neeraj said, given the fact that I have been working in this space since 2014, and I have seen many organizations in the past who have tried building this segment, best of best people who have tried this in the past. It's not been easy at all. And I think to Neeraj's point, what he said, and what I was also saying, while there is a lot of demand from older adults for opportunities, it's not easy to find and create those opportunities. So it's a lot of heavy lifting to even convince the corporates and the clients to really find those and I think it's almost like seeding ideas and cultivating them in their minds to be open up to the whole idea of that there can be a way where you can actually take on, older people in some roles, right? So I think so, yeah. So kudos to Wisdom Circle team, because I think the last 1.5 years, the kind of effort that I have seen going into it, and even the amount of achievement that you've had with this so far, I think it's really commendable, because in the past, the roles that I had, the organizations or the people I have seen putting in their effort in this had actually had to really move out of it because they were not really able to make it happen. And that even if you were to count the Sacred Portal, which was started by the government of India as well, that also shut down, right? So it's definitely not a easy task to be really creating this space, because you're actually creating the market while you are trying to make a business out of it. So it's not at all easy.
No, thank you for that, Nidhi. And as you correctly said, right, I think the approach we are taking is we have to demonstrate value to organizations. You see, here's the other learning we've had, Nidhi. This segment, none of us want sympathy that we are old. That's not, I think, and the whole notion of saying, "Are dekho, bichare, they're older and therefore we should have to employ them." No. In fact, our construct in how we think about it is, and maybe this is a good time to just share it so you'll understand and how we are thinking about it. So first, we call this group the wisdom generation. We don't call them old. We don't call them gray, right? We don't use that notion ki aap budde ho gaye ho. We say you're wise, and that's true. We have our mascot is called Wiz, this turtle. So that's the first starting point, and in a way, telling people, look, you know stuff, and we have to get that out there. So therefore, we think now, if you look at everything that is happening in the world today for this generation, so let's call them the wisdom generation, right? So you can either sell things to the wisdom generation, right? Because a lot of people believe that the wisdom generation has money. They've saved money, paise hain, they can spend it. Right? It's a very interesting notion. So healthcare services, financial services, I mean, you name the kind of service, they'll be like, yeah, these guys need it, we can sell it. Mobility services and the like. So that's the first thing. It's like, what can the world do for the wisdom generation? The second space is what you are in, Nidhi, which is the most important piece, which is the community piece. What we say, what can the wisdom generation do with each other? How can you infuse intergenerational connectivity in this group? Right? Because that's the part that, again, research says is the most important in living a happier, healthier life. The third piece is, what can the wisdom generation do for the world? So we tell, in fact, our view is we are in the business of what can the wisdom generation do for the world. We are not here to, bring in sympathy for this group. We are not here to sort of say, oh, bichare. There's no bichara, right? At the end, there is value. There's a lot of knowledge and skills and experience that this segment has. And we have to convince the marketplace, which is businesses, to say, look, here is a ready pool of a lifetime of wisdom. Now, how do we connect that? And therefore, not everybody, one wants to do it, and that's fine, right? But so we are trying to find people on both ends that can connect. And we are trying to figure out a better way of doing it. Because we don't want to impact only 10 people or 100 people or 1,000 people. Our view is this should be the place where anyone who wants to come and find meaningful engagement anywhere in the world should be able to come to. And where we want to, and this is what Niharika and I were talking about this morning, where we want to get to is if someone comes in and says, hey, I found this opportunity in Africa that matches my skill. Why can't I help them? The other day, I was talking to somebody who has poultry experience in Africa and has handled viruses and very specific skill set. He says, Neeraj, how can I leverage that? And suddenly again, we couldn't do this match, but how can you take that and match it to somebody who's struggling with the same problem in Indonesia? So there is a huge listing of a specific depth of skill that is getting absorbed. So if you come into this marketplace as a generalist, then we are finding it difficult to help people find a job. Because as a generalist, the non-profits will be open, but you have to, in your own mind. I was talking to somebody the other day, and I said, and let's call him Mukesh for a minute, and I pardon any Mukesh that's on the call. And I said, Mukesh, what are you good at? He says, I'm a damn good team manager and a team leader and a CEO. I said, yes, sir, theek hai, but what are you good at? What do you know? And he sort of stopped for a minute and he said, Neeraj, I know every tier 2, tier 3 town in the country. I know how distribution works. I know how pricing works. I know how to negotiate. I've done it all my life. I know how these guys think. And immediately I was like, okay, so you can help any organization that is trying to scale in tier 2, tier 3 towns with a consumer product where you have distributors. It's like, yes. So now if you start with, I'm a team leader, team manager, so we are also in a way calibrating people on skills. So anyway, I'll pause there. Both Niharika and I can continue going.
No, I think we'll take the question which Nand has asked, because I think many people would be curious about it. Could you elaborate a bit on the kind of roles, share examples of 2 or 3 openings that you all have on the platform right now? What kind of role, location, skill sets required, etc.? Can you share anything on that?
ये तो बहुत मुश्किल question पूछ रहे हो. So here is my answer to Mr. Nand Kumar. Sign up on Wisdom Circle, and you can see all the openings, right? The beauty of our platform is we don't charge for anyone to sign up. And that Nidhi has sort of beaten me up many times saying, yes, Silver Talkies ke logon se to bilkul paise nahi lene. So anyway, so we actually have a very good understanding, and Nidhi and I have been at it together for a long time, and I'm a big supporter of what you guys are doing at Silver Talkies. But please have a look. We actually have roles in all these categories. There are some very specific technical roles. Niharika, is there anything? I mean, look, we have, at the moment, we've got hundreds listed on the platform. Maybe you can give a few examples.
Niharika, do you want to actually just share your screen and actually just probably give a quick glimpse of the website? You could do that.
Yes.
That would be easier. And I would just let, in the meantime, while Niharika is bringing that up, so we have partnered with Wisdom Circle. So all the Silver Talkies Club members can actually access Wisdom Circle through our mobile app. So if you were to go to offers and deals and under work opportunities, you would find Wisdom Circle listed there, and you can access their website from there. And once you sign up, just in the drop down, select Silver Talkies as the organization through whose reference you are coming in, so that you can get preferential updates and other conversations, updates on the conversations that we'll continue to have with Wisdom Circle team, so that you can continue to get those benefits. So the Wisdom Circle website is now linked with our app, so you can access it directly through there.
And meanwhile, I'll quickly.
Sorry. Just give me 1 second. And let me mute.
I'll quickly answer the question that Medha and Pradeep have just asked. I think one, it's a thank you for this question. I think it's a very good question. We've been experimenting. So we have an engaged sort of platform where our focus is only the professional side. That's how we sort of look at it. So we've, I think, recently did a session for a NGO that actually wanted to hire. Where it's interesting, when they came and they talked about themselves, a lot of people came up and a lot of people then signed up for those roles. This was which one was this? This was Clay Lab. I think we literally placed 25 people at Clay Lab, and mainly because they came, Medha and Pradeep, and actually did exactly what you're saying. So we haven't, it comes back to where organizations are in their own comfort of wanting to pitch themselves to this segment. I think the work is on us as well to convince them that there is a lot of value here, and this is something that we want to ramp up. So, and what we do is, if you come sign up for Wisdom Circle at wisdomcircle.com, we also have WhatsApp groups that you can be a professional WhatsApp groups that you can be a part of, where we actually announce opportunities regularly. We sort of make sure that, when any of these sessions happen, that you can actually come and attend. Back to you, Niharika.
So Neeraj, I think what even Pradeep is alluding to is also almost like having, how Job 60 Plus used to have more like a job fair for seniors. They used to have actually one day, like a proper job fair where the organizations which have roles for older adults would be participating, and so there's like the matchmaking happens, right there during that fair. So maybe that's
so we are not. So the answer is, so again, you have to understand how we are different and how we are trying to be different. So again, pardon me for sort of, we don't have a interest problem in roles. Our problem is having enough roles on the platform.
Yeah.
Right. And therefore, right now, our focus is in just convincing organizations that they have to list, they have to create roles. And that's what we are. I mean, that's, as you said, that's the heavy lifting that we are doing. And that's the reason in the past, a lot of these organizations have not been able to operate. We're also trying to create a monetization model so we look at ourselves as not a non-profit, right? Because unless we create a profitable value proposition that works for the wisdom generation, that works for organizations, and that works for Wisdom Circle in terms of our commission, how we charge, etc., this model will not sustain. And therefore, our view is we have to make the model sustain. To make the model sustain, we need paying folks, right, on the organization side. And therefore, therefore, if you look at what's happened in the past, again, we are moving away from, we are doing this segment of favor. Nobody's doing anybody a favor. There is wisdom here. There is skills here. We want to showcase those skills to these. Now, are we doing it physically? No, we're not. We just haven't. We just don't have the resources yet to do it enough, right? And we're growing, and I think it's a wonderful idea. I wish, I think hopefully by next year, when we have more funds and we are in the fundraising process for our next round, we will get there. So here's a request for all the people here. If any of your kids are in private equity and have money to give, please connect them to Nidhi and to me and Niharika, because we would love to take their money to expand our business. Number two, if you know of organizations that you believe will benefit from the skills and wisdom that you all have, connect them to us. We will convince them as to why this is more important for them to live. So those are two asks for you all as well. And of course, all of you should sign up. And by the way, the intern movie just so that all of you know, 9 out of 10 people who talk to us actually ask us about, have you seen the movie Intern? And I must say that for those of you who don't know, there's a remake of Intern that was being planned with Amitabh Bachchan and Deepika Padukone, which actually unfortunately has not happened. But we also spoke with the producer to say, can you put Wisdom Circle inside the movie? And he agreed. But unfortunately, they were asking for a lot of money. So we're trying to convince Deepika Padukone that she's the producer, that they shouldn't ask for money. But anyway, we'll talk about the Intern remake at another time. But that is exactly the movie that everyone thinks about as they think about us. So thank you for asking. Niharika.
Yes, sorry. I will just show you a couple of JDs, but please, this is just representative. There are many more. So please, like Neeraj said, do sign up and take a look at everything that's open. I'm showing you just the actual JD, but what will happen when you sign up is you'll sort of give some basic information like your name, phone number, email, and then you'll be able to see the dashboard of all the jobs. You can filter by location, by sector, time commitment, whatever, and then take a look at everything that's available. But I'm just showing you 2-3 to see how it looks and what the roles are. So this is with Greaves Cotton. They're looking for an advisor, information systems. This is basically to do some kind of a scoping project and submit a proposal to the leadership on how they can do sort of take up IT transformation internally. It's just a 2-month project. This is how much it's paying. And it will be hybrid. These are their office locations. So the person can be in any of these places. And I mean, doing the project will require you to sort of go to office and interact with people. So therefore it's hybrid. So this is one.
So Niharika, usually the profile of the companies that you have, is it a mix of like SMEs and like what is the scale of these companies usually?
Yes, so we have no restriction on the type of organization. It can be anyone as long as they've understood the folks that we have on the platform, the kind of roles that would be relevant for them. And then of course they have a requirement that matches that. So we have large companies, we have MSMEs, startups, NGOs, aggregators, universities. So yeah, there's no restriction on the type of organization.
And what kind of work does your team kind of put into it in terms of, say, for example, I'm guessing you would be talking to each of these clients to kind of, say, help them refine or define the roles correctly and accurately. And also, do you also talk to the older adults who are listed on the platform to make sure that they are representing their skill sets and everything correctly? Do you do that kind of work as well?
Yes. I mean, exactly what you said, right? So actually there is a thorough vetting process that happens for the organizations and the opportunities that get listed. So like, we don't want to put something up for the sake of putting something up. That also leads to a lot of sort of, I guess, disappointment in the long run. So we actually invest a lot of time upfront in talking to the organization, making sure that they've understood what is Wisdom Circle, who are Wisdom. Exactly. I mean, we actually say no to roles and no to companies because either they're not understanding the value proposition or they're like, I mean, they don't have a requirement that suits the folks like yourselves. So yes, there is sort of interaction that happens before the opportunity even gets listed. And let's say it comes completely organically. There is still an approval process. So the organization can't just come and sign up and list something and it's immediately visible to the Wisdom. There is still an approval process that Wisdom Circle does. And then let's say like you said, the opportunity is listed, people are applying. We do interact with the people who apply and just try to make sure that exactly like you said, right? Like they are putting their best foot forward and the organization can take the right informed decision on who to proceed with.
So is there any work that also goes into helping the people who are listing themselves for roles in terms of helping them prepare, get ready for interviews or even in terms of their skill sets and stuff? What kind of work goes into that?
Let me just switch off the sharing. So let me answer that. So Nidhi, no, right? One of the biggest learnings that we had is, so we want to accurately represent both sides, and we want to create a marketplace where whatever is presented is who you are. Now, the way we do it, now it's a good question though. So, for example, in the listing, we ask organizations, we tell us the 3 questions that really are important for you as you pick somebody. See, a lot of times people don't even ask that. And then we ask individuals to respond to that as they see fit. We do not coach them. We do not tell them what they need to write, because to me, then that's not a fair marketplace. Now, here is what we do, which is very different from any other place. We will not list a role where a compensation is negotiable. Because what we realized is, one, as we get older, none of us want to negotiate salary. You're like, yaar, batao kitna doge? If I like it, I will apply. So one of the things we tell our clients, whoever is listing, is please be clear on the duration. Please be clear on how much you're going to pay. Now, you can always increase it if you increase duration or whatever, but you can't decrease it. So if someone says, I'm going to pay somebody $1 lakh a month and this is what I expect, we don't want anyone to write, oh, we will. And by the way, that's the problem we have. The recruitment typically works. So we tell people, one, this is not a recruitment platform. This is a connecting wisdom platform. And wisdom, you tell us how much you can pay, you tell us how much time commitment, let people decide if they want to apply or not. So what we are doing is we are putting guardrails to make sure that it is easier for people to take a job. Now, and at the end, what also we noticed is a lot of organizations, for example, stop replying or don't respond correctly. So and this is the stuff a lot of people who on the other side don't know. We actually give our clients a very hard time. We say, yeah, you have to remember this segment is not your 20-year-old who doesn't care if they've been responded to or not. You have to be respectful, and it comes back to relevance and respect, right? I said you have to be respectful for these people. You have to make sure you either turn them down. Now, we're not successful 100% of the time, but we're trying to get there. And we're trying to make sure that people are respectful of the experience and wisdom that folks bring in, and not treat them as a regular, open role hai, isko fill karo. Whenever companies like that, this is what Niharika was talking about. Whenever we have organizations that look at this as a transaction and only as a transaction, we actually tell them that we are not the right platform for you. We are also learning. I think we made a lot of mistakes upfront initially, right? When we listed a lot of roles, a lot of them didn't close because the client expectations were very different. I think as we are getting along, this is to your point, what have we learned in the last year and a half? We've learned that even we have to manage organizations and their expectations differently. Therefore, this is a much more longer journey to get this. And what we are learning is there are organizations that understand this. There are many. Right? So this whole notion that, organizations don't like elders, no, it's not correct. Right? There's enough and more. I think they have their own internal stresses and pressures and ecosystem issues, etc. So our thing is, in fact, we are also now creating training programs for organizations to say, if you bring in these folks into the workplace, you also need to change. So we recently did a program. You want to talk about the Grand Manager program, which I thought was a very interesting one that you did.
Yeah, so there was this IT, more like data sciences consulting company in Bangalore, very large one, and they basically had have a very young population, some 4,000 employees, and the average age is maybe 23, 24. So the founder felt a lack of, let's say, wisdom and experience that was guiding the work and sort of the effectiveness of the team. And he thought that it would be a good idea to have Wisgen. So he exclusively sort of approached Wisdom Circle and said, hey, can you give me some really good senior retired professionals who can be tagged to a couple of my young folks, and they will mentor the young leaders in the organization. So it's like balancing their sort of intelligence and agility with the wisdom and the experience that comes from the Wisgen. And it worked really well. We started with a 3-month pilot. There were 5 of them, and it worked really, really well. because at the end of the day, even the employees really appreciated being invested in that way. And the grant managers had a great time. They also actually really enjoyed meeting each other, which was a nice sort of side effect. And they're continuing for 3 more months now because it worked out well.
Neeraj, do you want to speak about a little about the resume writing services and the other ancillary services that you have introduced?
Correct. So we've introduced two services, maybe. One is a resume writing service, which is, or rather, and in a way, this is the help as you were talking about, where we do charge for it. And again, from a Silver Talkies perspective, we've actually reduced the rate. Right now, and you always keep pushing us to try and do it as low as we can if you're trying. So I think that's something that we've also introduced, where people are saying, yeah, for example, a lot of people come with 10, 15-page resumes because the experience is so like my father once wrote a resume at 30 pages. I said, Dad, 30 pages, who has the time? He's like, no, I wrote everything. Now let's figure out what to do with it. And I think, as you know, right, there is this thing saying, look, I'm sorry for this really long letter because I did not have time to write a shorter one. Because that's what you need to sort of shorten it, right? So in fact, we actually help be a little more articulate with what you're trying to say, so we can actually help you with that. The second thing we are doing is a verification service, because what we realized is, like, and we do charge for it because we use another vendor to actually help us do the verification. But what that verification does is, we on the profile and clearly write it's a verified profile. Because what happens when a client sees a profile, so say they see 5 people who applied and they see one profile that says verified profile, they naturally lean towards that much more. Now, it is a cost for us, and it's a cost that we pass down. And right now, we are actually, I think, 50% off on it. As maybe you sort of asked us to push our costs. So we're actually operating significantly. In fact, we're subsidizing it. But we just want to make sure that, Aadhaar card, PAN card, references, where you work, your education, etc., is all verified, because a lot of times that's where things go wrong. So we are, in a way, what we are actually getting at is the genuineness of the people who are interested, and making sure that we present the genuineness. So those are services we've introduced. It's not, we don't make money on this. Our money comes only when we place somebody and etc. But it is a service that I think, just helps with giving both sides comfort on the authenticity of the applicant, as well as, I think, we do it on the organization side anyways. So as Niharika was saying, I think on the organization side, we typically go with references and referrals, especially people who just come up and sign up on their own. We actually do a lot of due diligence on them. Sometimes we'll tell them, as a non-profit, show us the ATG certificate, so show us your this thing, and before we list, or we talk to a few people. So therefore it's taking a little longer. But my suggestion is, if you all do come, we are actually running for about 50% off, at least for the first, I think, a couple of hundred people who would want to sign up on verification. Please get yourself verified. It just gives you a better chance. Again, once you get a verified profile, it's just your chances go up. Literally, what we have seen is it go up at least 2 to 3 times in terms of organization preferences. We still can't guarantee, and unfortunately, we can't guarantee anything, because we're again a marketplace, right? At the end, the efficient market theory works, but we can nudge, right?
So I just also have another follow-up question to that, and this is coming from a personal experience. I think a little earlier on in Silver Talkies' journey, we were, we had kind of tried to work in this space in a small way, where we were telling organizations that if you have a role, we will circulate it, in our community, and people can apply. And my experience had been that I found it a little difficult while I remember placing one person successfully, we did that too, but I also had this challenge where people who came to us saying that they are looking for roles, there were cases where they did not end up reaching for their interviews, or they did not stay completely committed to the roles that they had taken up, right? Now, so what kind of expectation setting would you want, to do for those who are actually seeking roles?
I think that's a wonderful question, Nidhi, because there is something we have control over, there's something we do not have control over. The stuff we have control over is laying out expectations very clearly. What we don't have control over is how they are followed. I think the one thing that you have to remember is that if you don't do what you committed to do, you're doing disservice to the whole community. Right? I mean, when we've had a situation recently where somebody signed up and didn't show up for, signed up for a month and took 15 days off and was not reachable on the phone, was not, and sure, the person had some personal exigencies and therefore, but even was not answering our phone. Now, what that does is the client at that stage is saying, "Yaar, ye retiree is so bekar." So therefore, I think you have to understand that if you so you have to be committed to at least do what you have, said you. It does put us in a spot, but it's okay. We apologize. We actually told the client we'll cover the salary. You don't have to pay. So these are costs, right? And these are the things we are working. And by the way, this happens with younger people a lot more. It doesn't happen. The good part is with this segment, it doesn't happen as much. And as you correctly said, I think with clients it happens all the time. But the question, I think, Geeta, you're saying is once you entered into a contract, post that you have to, then the commitment has to be from both sides. Now, before you can also withdraw if you don't like it. Organizations also don't come back. That's fine. What we are trying to enable is that the communication happens. It's not easy, right? Because we're trying to change the mindsets of people to say, and they're used to that with young people. Like young people, half the time, you make them, they sign up and they don't even join, right? We don't want that same feeling to persist with older. And by the way, in our experience, I'd say, of the hundreds of roles we've done, like just a very few, we've actually got into a situation where there has been a commitment issue.
Mm-hmm.
Compared to if this was younger people, I would say 30% of given. So our view is this segment on both sides is much more committed. And that's the expectation also. Because if you're not committed, please don't sign up. Right? Or if you're not committed, or you can clearly say, look, I can only, and that's why to your earlier point, part-time works better. So we say, look, 2 days a week. Right? Now you have 3 days a week to cover up all your other stuff.
Right.
But you have to commit to, and we don't say which 2 days. Right. So those are the things we are learning and sort of getting better at communicating, and that's why more inclination towards part. We do have full-time roles. We try to put them there just to see how it works. We put volunteer roles to see how it works, and they do work. But again, we have to make the commercials work. Otherwise, we can't sustain long-term. And it's working. And I think part-time is our focus is. And if you ask most of us, like 9 out of 10 of us will, when asked saying, do you want a part-time or full-time, we'll say, yeah, part-time. Right? Because we have other commitments. We have children. We have our health issues. We want to watch television. We want to read a book. We want to sleep.
And they want that flexibility. Yeah.
Correct. So someone asks us, oh, why can't LinkedIn do this? I said, because they don't understand this segment. This segment has different needs. We want to be treated fairly. We want some flexibility. We are committed. We are not career oriented anymore. That's the biggest learning, right? All of us are, ho gaya career. Now it is, I know stuff. Can I monetize it? Will people respect me for it? And at the same time, can I also have intelligence where I can also learn from younger people? So those are the things we're trying to solve for. But we are very confident actually. If you ask us, I think we're all on this journey that we really believe that. I mean, we're a for-profit organization with a social purpose, and the social purpose is we want to reduce the rate of cognitive decline in the world, right? Depression, dementia, Alzheimer's, and a lot of this comes a lot of my family members have gone through it, and it is difficult, right? And especially when the children are out, you're sitting at home and you're cutting bhindi. It is it's not easy.
Okay, so there was a question from Vijay. He had asked about the charges. Are there any charges for making these connections between the corporates and the the applicants?
No, at the moment, no. So connection is no. I'll tell you how our model works. So we have two parts of our model. There is a model where we charge. So, for example, if you get placed in an organization, the organization pays the full amount of whatever our service fee is for helping doing that. In some cases, the organization comes back and says, look, let's split it between us and the candidate. So in which case, only if you get paid, we take a percentage of that salary. And it's all upfront and it's all clear. Look, this is what the percentage is. So every role, if you even see roles that are listed on our platform, in some cases, we'll say that, Wisdom Circle will charge a service fee. of X%. And that's something that we negotiate with the client at the other end to make it. But we do not charge you anything unless you get paid. Right? So matching, there's no problem. Meeting, there's no problem. Because at the end, like I said, now we may introduce a freemium thing later and sort of figure out how that works. But at the moment, there's no charge. We do charge for verification. We do charge because, again, we have a cost associated with it. But that's what we charge for. And by the way, we are also trying our level best. We do a lot of professionally related activities if you are signed up on our platform. So if you come to the WhatsApp group, so for example, we hold sessions on, a lot of people want to be board members. So we actually talk about, does it really make sense to be a board member? What does it mean? So we get a board member to talk about what does that mean. We actually have a tie-up with the Indian Leaders in Social Service, social sector, to tell us about, okay, what does it take to work in the social services sector if you've not ever worked there before. We had one around, with SP Jain, where they came and talked about if you want to convert your wisdom into a teaching course, what does it take to become a teacher? So we are trying to create or curate content that helps you grow professionally. We're about to create a content. Say, again, everyone's talking about AI and Gen AI, etc. But we just want people to be. So we're not doing upskilling just yet, but we eventually will get to that area to make sure we develop things that will help this segment become more confident to go back into this workplace where everybody thinks they are smarter, but they're not. Right? At the end, it's all about terminology, right? And a lot of us have, seen much more in our lives and pivoted so much that. So the mindset we expect, and this comes back to your earlier question on commitment, the other mindset you should have is of learning. If you only come into it saying, "मैं बस ज्ञान दूंगा," then I think it doesn't work, because there are very few takers only for gyan. Those are short-term projects. Will say, "Come, tell us, give us your gyan and go." But therefore, you have to have a continuous learning mindset as well, because then you'll be able to ask the right question.
So you just mentioned that you are not into the whole upskilling, you don't provide upskilling courses or anything of that. So because there is a comment here from Sheila, she shared that she worked as a language editor. And the challenge was that the older people who had good command on languages, but they were not tech savvy up to expectations, hence they were rejected, or, they were discouraged from taking on that role. So do you also come across such similar situations, and how do you handle those?
Yes, we do. Right. Look, I think, again, it comes back to the organization side. And there's all kinds of organizations, all kinds of people. Right. So, this stuff will not happen overnight. I think a lot of this, the way I look at it, and what I tell our friends and everyone on the platform, saying, "Dekho, nahi ho, koi nahi, pareshan nahi ho," right? It will happen. You'll find the right. In fact, you don't even want to work for such people who think that way. Right? If they're rejecting you, is for two reasons. One, they don't believe in the value, or second, they themselves are ignorant about the value that can come, right? And or just are so focused on what their own metrics are. So in a way, and that's the thing, a lot of us, as we age, we get better at forgiving. Again, it's okay. It's like, let's not, I think the challenges we have seen are when people start getting hurt in this segment. Our only suggestion is, please don't get hurt. These guys are kids. A lot of them don't even know what they're doing. It's okay, right? Let's find the right opportunity, and we'll get there. I think there are enough and more organizations that value this. I think we're just trying to find them and get them on our platform. That's our role.
So there's one very specific question which Sunil has asked. He's asking, is there any opportunity for 83-year-old retired bank manager to work from home? He's not tech savvy. He's fine to do honorary service. He's asking for his own dad.
So I'll go back, look into what's open. I can't think of anything right now immediately, but there would be a lot of these social sector roles, I would think. You want to give back. There are sort of online mentoring, counseling sort of opportunities. That might be something that would be interesting. But I can sort of look and share more specifically.
There's a comment from Pradeep asking, have you considered creating a stream of outsourcing SME or subject matter experts by creating a pool of such expertise?
These questions are very, very apt. I think what I'm liking about these questions is everyone here is engaged in what you guys are asking. I think so. The answer is yes. We're still figuring out a way to do it because we, in fact, actually have started doing it in marketing, in supply chain, and the like. What we are learning is a couple of learnings we've had. The biggest learning is a lot of people who are subject matter experts, who have their own consulting outfit, do not like to sell, right? Because being an expert versus selling their expertise are two different things. In fact, a lot of these consultants have approached us saying, yeah, look, can you make us a featured consultant on your website? We will pay you, call it marketing fees, and we will vet them. So in fact, one of the things we are actually going to do is we're going to vet some of these subject matter experts, and going to start listing them on our platform for people to come and directly find subject matter experts, as opposed to going through the recruitment play. But a very good question. We are still thinking about how to solve it. And by the way, we love these questions. Please keep them coming. And I think we have all this going on, but we are also trying to focus, right? Because if we don't focus and execute well on this, we can't scale. And that's essentially the play, Nidhi, you and I have always talked about, is the journey we are on. All we can promise you is that we will be much, much bigger a year from now than we are right now. By the way, Lakshmi's question is damn good. I think, so we'll just give you some statistics. Of the people who signed up in our platform, 20% are women, 80% are men. Of the people we have placed, 50% are men and 50% are women. So which tells you women are more preferred, and sorry for the men on the call, but women are more preferred by the recruiters that are on our platform than the men are. And I'm sorry again to say this to the men, and I'm one of them. We men, unfortunately, do not age well. We are much more annoyed by going old than women are.
Swati, are you here? I think it's a good time to bring you into the conversation. Can you turn on your camera? Unmuted, can you tell us about your experience, since you have been on the Wisdom Circle platform? Well, let me just quickly introduce all of you to Swati. Swati actually, is a member of the Silver Talkies Club, but before coming to Silver Talkies Club, she started working with Wisdom Circle, and I think she is already has a few roles in her lab. So Swati, can you elaborate on what is that you are doing, and how did you go about finding it through Wisdom Circle?
So my primary career has been that of an architect, and I practiced in Bangalore for about 25 years. And then when I got tired of the rat race, I wanted to continue working. And since some of my skill sets included writing, teaching, and such aspects, I was looking around for something which would suit and sync with these skills. And my son happened to connect with Neeraj, and he asked me to speak to him. And I just felt that the philosophy of Wisdom Circle resonated so much with me that I signed up as soon as Neeraj could have me on board. So that's how I joined Wisdom Circle, and I've been doing content and helping a bit with operations. I'm now doing some research and documentation. So yeah, the roles are varied, and as long as you can adapt, I think, and upskill along the way, I think seniors are a force to reckon with.
So was there any kind of upskilling that you were required to do? And if yes, how did you go about it?
Not necessarily, I mean, not formally, but, seniors very often find themselves tech challenged. And so I am in awe of all the youngsters at Wisdom Circle, because they're just so knowledgeable about these things. But the wonderful thing with reverse mentoring is all the 20-year-olds are always ready to pitch in and help me out. And so along the way, I have stopped feeling awkward or embarrassed about asking even the silliest of questions. And it's just such a wonderful collaboration. So anybody who's feeling concerned about stepping into a intergenerational workforce, I think they shouldn't, because there is some wonderful synergy going on at the workplace.
That's so beautiful to know. Niharika, in fact, there is a related question. Daisy is asking, do all roles actually require one to be conversant with computers?
Not really. I mean, very basic. Actually, what we say is if you can use Zoom like you all are, like that's enough tech savviness that you need. um, I mean, you would obviously be signing up on the platform and applying. So just a little bit of familiarity with using the computer is good enough. The roles themselves are very varied, but it's not that all of them will need, right? Some of them actually need you to work with the people. Some of them are actually more in-person roles, so they won't really be tech.
Mm-hmm. So how does this work? So once one lists themselves on the platform, it's more like a discovery platform where you kind of look for the job opportunities which would be relevant for you. Is that how it works? Like any other job platforms that people may be, conversant with? Is that how it works?
Yes and no. I mean, that's obviously one part of it. But like Neeraj was mentioning earlier, we have all these communication channels. So every time there's new opportunities that come up, the emailers go out to all the people on the platform. We have our WhatsApp group. So once a week, we just share the latest new opportunities. And because we have the ability to see everyone who has signed up, like all the individuals with Gen, we do some sort of intentional matchmaking at our end. So when an opportunity is listed, we know who are the people on the platform who might be the most relevant, and we would, actively reach out to them and show the job. So it's not only that you have to keep logging in and checking, but of course that's the best way.
Okay, that's wonderful to know.
So,
Neeraj, you wanted to add something?
No, the only thing I want to add is we are very confidential with your data, and because unlike in other job places, like you go to LinkedIn, everything is public. I think one of the things we have sort of told ourselves is one, we are not going to, this data is your data, and therefore we are operating in a very, so like no one has access to your data unless you apply for a role in the outside.
Okay.
I think that's sort of the bigger point. Because we just don't want everyone saying, oh, this guy is looking for nothing. It's like there's a role, you want to apply, it's discreet. If you get it, you get it. That's something that works. So we're trying to, again, do things a little differently, Nidhi, but that's sort of the principle with how we are operating.
And once somebody has applied, the onus of scheduling the interviews and all lies on your team?
No, it varies. It varies. In fact, because we're a platform, we're not, again, we are encouraging the organizations to do it directly. With the correct. Because that's the most effective way. Otherwise, we become a bottleneck.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just one more question here. So in fact, since the whole topic of intern came about, right, and it's the most popular movie when it comes to this topic, in reality, how that movie shows the acceptance of the employer, or the bosses with an older employee. How close is that movie to the reality, in fact?
Yeah, it's not close. I think, again, India one is very different. So we are waiting for and by the way, even the India remake of Amitabh Bachchan, Deepika Padukone that was going to come up was going to be shot in London. So I think the India reality is very different. And all of us know the realities, I think, but at the same time, the other thing is we are also seeing it change. Maybe a lot of people we're also realizing that. So it's different. And plus, see, it's also a very social phenomenon. In our country, we cannot operate in, like, one of us will not want to be a driver, right? Or will not want to, because we're like, yes, so there's a pride issue, there's a social issue, etc. So there are lots of other things that are different. So by the way, this varies a lot between countries. So we've actually been studying many countries as well. And this whole problem, it's actually a retirement as an idea, and has a lot of complications from the other side on pension plans, politics, government. In fact, yesterday on one of my LinkedIn things, the High Court and the Supreme Court have, the Parliamentary Committee has finally said, okay, we can increase the retirement age from 65.
Silver Talkies club members, you can actually access Wisdom Circle through the app now. They are linked. The website is linked there. All you need to do is go through the app, go to their website, sign up, and then you have complete access to the platform, and you can start exploring for the opportunities available there. And as and when we have new updates from Wisdom Circle team, we will start circulating them amongst you. So thank you so much, Neeraj. Thank you, Niharika, for being questions that we had. There is a lot of interest. And I think the size of the audience that we had today, it was indeed, from the past few sessions, it was much better. So I must say that this was, a much needed session. So thank you so much for your time today. And we'll be in touch.
No, thank you, Nidhi, and thank you everyone for attending.